Horsey, and today we're going to take a look at equations involving absolute value. So if you have questions, as always, please check on me in class. But this is a virtual course, so leave a class comment if you have questions. So today we're going to solve equations involving absolute value. Now, it might seem harder than you think, and we're going to redefine absolute value. So here are some absolute values, and we're gonna solve for them. So 3's absolute value is 3. Whoopsies. 3. And 2.5's absolute value is just 2.5. And negative 7's absolute value, in your previous math courses, you would think that it's 7. And you are right, because absolute value didn't change. It's still 7. And negative 4.8 is 4.8. So, true or false, the absolute value of a number is always positive. You already see the X out there. It is false, because 0. 0 is neither positive or negative, so that just redefines absolute value. The definition for absolute value is, let me just go over here. Yep, here's the definition. The absolute value of a number is non-negative, which is kind of like a cheesy way of saying it's neither positive but also not negative. So basically, it's like saying that I like a hamburger, but instead of saying I don't like a cheeseburger, you said I like a hamburger. But since there's other versions of a hamburger, like you don't want a cheese, so you call a hamburger a non-cheeseburger. It's kind of like that's a bad like analogy, but so like yeah, you get the idea. 0 is an exception, so you can't say it's positive. So we're gonna solve equations today. Let me show you what they are. So, absolute value of x equals 5. What is x? Now, most people will already see that this is like a quadratic, 2 solutions. Because x, of course, equals 5. But negative 5 also works. So, the same is true using the reflexive property. X equals 5 and 5 just equals 5. But remember that negative numbers absolute value also is positive. So we need to take the opposite and we get 2 solutions. What is this absolute value? Now you might think that, how do you solve this? Well, short answer is you can't. So it just equals no solution, because remember we find absolute value is non-negative, but since if absolute value is non-negative and the answer is negative, well, that's impossible, so there's no solution. Like, x can't be anything. We're gonna get some complicated, so we need to isolate the absolute value so that it's in the form ax plus b equals c. C is less than 0, the equation has no solutions. Because if you think about it, c can't be negative. Separate the absolute value into 2 equations. Ax plus b equals c, and ax plus b equals negative c. Why 2? Because as we know, c can be negative 2, because just like the previous example, 5 and negative 5 both work for a solution. So then you can just solve both equations. So here is an absolute value using the form ax plus b's absolute value equals c. So we have here is 3 minus 2x absolute value plus 5 equals 9. Now we need to isolate since the 5 is there. Subtract 5 and 5, and we get that the absolute value of 3 minus 2x is equal to 4. Then we know what to do. So we rewrite 3 minus 2x, and then 4 we rewrite 2, but just add the negative. Don't forget the negative. And solve each equation, And the answer is two answers, because if you plug them both back in, it'll work. But yes, also keep the absolute value bars, because if you lose them, then it just becomes a single variable equation. Okay, the next up, solve this. Same thing, another example. Keep the absolute value bars, same and opposite, and then drop it after you're done. Now, we're going to talk about extraneous solutions, because if you look at this, x plus 7 equals negative 5. Nowhere in the world is an absolute value equal to a negative solution. So no solution. And then we have 2y plus 5 equals 0. Very simple. 0 is not negative or positive, so there is no opposite. So absolute value equations with two absolute values, we'll take a look at that. So we have absolute value of 5 equals absolute value of 5. Absolute value of 5 equals negative absolute value of 5. They're the same, and they're the opposite. Same thing, and same thing. Two cases. So it gets a little bit complicated, but not really, because remember that in this case 3w minus 2 is our c, and negative c, which is shown on the right here, the opposite column is still the same. So we're gonna solve it as usual under standard conventions. Same thing, you just set 3k plus 3 and then just flip it so that it becomes opposite, and then solve as follow. And then we're gonna have extraneous solutions. So not all absolute values work at the same. So if we check, the same follows through. But in the opposite, you see that something's wrong here. Because if you set C as opposite, you get negative 9 equals negative 3. And that's not a solution. So the x is just 3. And extraneous solutions are pretty hard. So you gotta be sure to check your answers. And as always, if you have questions, bring them to class. This is Horsey here, back with your absolute value equation. And I'm going to do some more videos. The next topic is on absolute value inequalities, so make sure you get absolute values equations clear, because in inequalities, it will be cumulative, so basically it will be based off of this. Rewatch the video, and yeah, thanks for watching.